I'm Martha Linwood. It's nice to meet you all. I know you want me to talk about my son, Jackson. Jackson was always such a nice boy. It was just me and him, but I never thought he was very lonely. We kept each other company, Jackson and I. He did well in school and played in the band, saxophone, and he was good at it too. He planned on going away to school. I told him I'd miss him, but it'll be good for him to be away. He loved me. He told me all the time, "I love you, Mom." He'd say it every day before he left for school. I still feel his little arms around my neck when he'd hug me so tight. "I love you, Mom." And he did. Now, I know you all want me to talk about what my son did. That's not who Jackson was. It's not who Jackson is. I'd like to tell you about my son, not about what he did. Martha Linwood has always loved her son, and after finding out that Jackson would forever be labeled as a monster, there was nothing that she could do but accept it. A Nice Boy by Alyssa Zaxick does an extraordinary job in demonstrating the love a mother can feel for her child, regardless of the horrible things he may be capable of. It just goes to show that you can't protect your child from everything, and you most certainly can't protect everything from your child. Oh, Jackson was such a good baby. He's always so quiet and happy. His daddy left us when he was only a few years old, but we did all right by ourselves. I never remarried. Jackson's daddy was never any good to us and never saw any reason to believe that anyone else could do us any better. But my baby didn't want for anything, believe me. I took good care of Jackson. I don't know if he ever missed his father. He never really knew him. But I think I did a decent job of making sure he felt loved. I only wish I could have sheltered him from the world outside our home. Children can be so cruel, can't they? They picked on him. He's been skinny and sort of sickly looking ever since he was young, but I don't know, I always thought he was so handsome, like a little Von Trapp child or something. But he was weaker than the rest of the boys in grade school. Not as fast, so he became the butt of some jokes. I did what I could. I called his principal and his teachers and every mother of every bully I ever heard about. I don't know, I might have made just things worse. You can't protect your children from everything, you really can't. Goodness knows I tried. His middle school years were rough, that's for sure. He loved books, which is good for him, but he was a little shy, so sometimes he'd come home all upset, telling me that kids at school would make fun of him for liking a girl. It's just awful. To make fun of a boy for having a little crush. Well, I guess the kids at school thought that no girl would ever like Jackson. But I told him, I said, "Jackson, there is one girl in this world who will love you forever, no matter what. And that's your mom." And that's still true, I'd like to add. He had some boys he was friends with, a couple of kids around the neighborhood that he knew. They stuck by him, at least until they got to high school. They all went to different schools, you see, scattered around town, and when they stopped seeing each other so much. Nothing to talk about anymore, I guess. And that made things hard on Jackson. I think that's what made him so upset. Look, all I know about Jackson's time in high school is that he liked to be alone or with me. We did lots of little things together. We watched movies at home and made dinner. He was happy when he was with me, I'm telling you. He was fine when he was with me. Couldn't always be with me, though. And I think he started to get depressed when I had to start working more. I went to school online to get my degree. I'm a nurse, and I didn't start working at the hospital until Jackson's junior year. It's good work, and I love to help people, but I work weekends and nights, so I'm away from home. Jackson was home alone a lot, and I think it made him upset. I think it made him angry to not have any girlfriends or close friends or anything, and not to have his only family home with him. I think that's what made him so upset, and I'm so sorry. I didn't think he'd become so. He's such a smart boy. He's just had trouble socially, that's all. He's such a smart boy. I never thought he'd do anything like this. I was working late at the hospital one night, and about midnight this girl comes running in, and she's all beat up around her face, and her clothes are a mess, and her neck. That's the worst part. She has 2 red marks around her neck like she'd been choked. And she was gasping and crying, so I came out from around the desk and I asked her, "Honey, what happened?" And she was crying too hard to say, and so I asked her again, "Honey, what happened to you?" And finally, she said that she'd been raped, and, well, right away I thought I had to contact the police. I had to help this girl. And so I turned and I asked her, "Honey, who did this to you? What's his name?" And then she said, "Jackson Nickel." And I asked her to repeat herself, and again she said, "Jackson Nickel." I'm not sure what happened after that. I think I may have fainted, but when I woke up, the police were there, and they were asking all sorts of questions. If Jackson had ever been violent towards me, if he had any girlfriends, if I knew where he was that night or the night before, and I just kept saying, "No, no, no, they've got the wrong boy, it's so misunderstanding, they've got the wrong boy," that's all they said. I told them it was as simple as that. This poor girl must have known Jackson from school and was so traumatized by her ordeal that she mistook her attack of my son. That's all this was. But then they told me that they already had Jackson in custody and that he admitted to doing those awful things to that girl, Sarah. Her name was Sarah. And to 2 other girls earlier in the week. And all I wanted to do was see my baby boy, because my baby boy, my Jackson, would never do anything like this. I never told Jackson much about sex. I never told him about the birds and the bees. It's my fault. He must have learned that terrible thing on the internet. It's my fault. He's so repressed. It should be me they've locked up, not him. Not my baby. I didn't believe it until they had the DNA evidence and then they put him away. He's almost 50 years old by the time he's out. They had to sentence him as an adult because he's 18 now, you see. I visit him as often as I can. It's been difficult with all your reporters and whatnot around. People around town have been saying that they thought that Jackson was crazy and it's a small town and news travels him. Well, according to popular belief, now I'm the mother of a monster. That's not the son I raised. I raised Jackson to be loving towards women. I know I did because he loved me. The court psychologist, though, said that Jackson wasn't crazy per se, but that his clinical depression combined with the need to rebel from an overbearing home life caused a psychotic break, during which time the attacks occurred. Just a bunch of fancy words that ultimately mean that I smothered my son. I loved him so much, he just couldn't stand me anymore. Now I thought if I'd been home more, that he wouldn't have raped those girls, but it turns out the last thing that he needed was more of his mom. I don't know what was going on in his head, but I know that all I did was be his mom. That's my job. And I did what I thought was best for him. Well, I kept in touch with Sarah. I know it sounds crazy making friends with that girl, but after what Jackson did to her, I felt indebted to her in a way. I don't know. I felt to owe her some compassion, so I wrote her a letter apologizing on behalf of my son, and I'll be damned she wrote back. I'm trying to help her in any way that I can. She's a sweet little girl. Tied hair the color of coffee. Her family lives on the other side of town. She loves ballet. I guess she barely knew Jackson. They had a class together, which must be where he noticed her, she said. She said she doesn't blame Jackson for what he did now that she knows that he's mentally ill. I told him that I don't blame him either. That's because I'm his mom. And she told me not to blame myself. I told her it's too late for that. She's such a sweet girl. In another world, maybe her and Jackson could have been good for each other. Maybe they would have loved each other in a world where he wasn't so, or where he didn't. Well, you know. I don't like to think of him alone in a cell somewhere. He needs somebody, my Jackson, and when I'm dead and gone, and he'll be all alone, and then what? I'm on my way to visit him now. But I'm certain all you reporters already knew that. I'm sure you're all just lovely people, and you're just doing your jobs. But after today, I just have to ask, Please leave us alone. Just leave my baby boy alone. He is sick and he's a child just like anybody else's. When I see him today, I'm going to ask him if he's sorry for what he's done. I think that he'll say that he is. I hope he'll say that he is. I love my son. I love my son no matter what terrible things he may have done to those women. Now you know. Now you believe me when I say, so such a nice boy.